So to recap, we've established that King Deoxy rules over all living things. And he doesn't do it alone. He has his cousins, mTRNA, or even some special proteins that help him reproduce. But the main gist of this entire story is that he's responsible for life. And more importantly, every single living thing, not just life in general. Let me remind you that humans have the same ruler as radishes or rabbits. And a question remains. Let me remind you guys that, as I mentioned before, we're all ruled by DNA, but there's an issue. Can we establish one thing? Humans dominate the planet. Can we establish? Okay. So now we've got that underway, a question remains, why? Because if we're all ruled by DNA, the exact same molecule, what puts humans above others? To prove this point, I'm a strong believer in seeing is believing. It's pretty hard to wrap your head around the fact that we have the exact same DNA as all other creatures. So I brought my DNA and the DNA of a banana. So I'll pass this around if you guys want to see. So if you guys could gather around in this area, you'll see that this one's my DNA, the bottom is alcohol, and the top, this clump of white stuff, is the DNA right there. You guys can pass it around if you want. And then for you guys, you get the banana side. And you'll notice that they look almost identical. In fact, the only difference is a slight inch, but that's only because I used a different dish soap when I was extracting separate DNA. So as I mentioned before, DNA doesn't rule with an iron fist. He's very subdued in that he's more of a mediator. He just controls exactly how we live and pretty much how we think indirectly. He has an interesting relationship with his living things in that he doesn't control their thought process provided they have thoughts. In fact, many scientists believe that humans are the only creatures with a conscious. But he controls their biological processes. He tells which of their cells to be which type of their cells. He tells every single biological process how to work, and more importantly, he codes for the proteins that specialize cells in general. But we have a special relationship with DNA. In fact, you could think that we're slightly gifted. Now this is where religions branch off into different theories, and be it that it's divine intervention, or that DNA just felt like it, or even the theory of evolution, for some reason, we have a really fat brain, especially in a ratio to our body. For one thing, it's not so much the mass of the brain in general that determines intelligence, because the mass of the neurons themselves, although there's speculation if they could be the unit of intelligence, that's not really why. It's more the networks between the neurons, the dendrites, the axons that connect them. How quickly can we go back from thought to thought? How quickly can we pull up memories? Or better yet, even make tools. For whatever reason, DNA, our DNA, has a gene called ASPN. And this gene is present in primates, but even more in humans than any other creature. And what this gene, ASPN, does is that it creates a sheath called myelin, and that protects our axons. It prevents our brains from degrading, and more importantly, it helps us build new connections. This way we can learn. We can remember things we did, and more importantly, we recently discovered our king, because no other animal has managed to find King Deoxy except for us. And as a result of this, we've invented science. There's even speculation if we've invented math. If math was already the language of the universe, or if we invented it, the point is we've done feats of nature with our minds. In fact, scientists speculate that the human mind is probably the most complex thing in the galaxy. So what have we done with our intelligence? Because let me remind you that even though we're gifted and we have all the, you can think that that King Deoxy liked us more. Think of it that way. We were one of his. He created all the living things, but for some reason he gave us something special. He gave us intelligence, and what did we do with it? What have we used this intelligence for? Is it more of a greedy purpose, or regarding the rest of the creatures King Deoxy created? He put us above all others, but what are we doing in that position? In fact, our relationship with DNA isn't pretty good, because if you think about it, we've been starting to tamper with it. We haven't been respecting DNA's position. Think about CRISPR. CRISPR is a human genome editing tool, and it involves basically viral DNA and basically taking our DNA and taking out things we don't like and inserting things we do. Basically, our relationship with DNA is more of give me what I want, and we're not going to give you a conscious kind of relationship. So now this begs the question, who controls who anymore? DNA gave us imagination. DNA gave us neurons. DNA gave us thought, the thinking process. DNA gave us art, thinking, writing, and other flowery pursuits. But more importantly, as I mentioned before, DNA gave us imagination. And you know what we've done with that imagination? Now we imagine ourselves free of DNA. Because DNA, although it created all living things in this story, although it created all living things, it holds shackles around them. it prevents them from being things that say that if we were to rule our conscience, we can't grow wings if we wanted to. Our DNA prevents us from doing that. So at the same time, though DNA created us, it's kind of a relationship in that DNA at the same time prevents us from doing a lot of things that maybe we don't want to do, but a lot of things, it limits us. It puts shackles on all living things.